Hi everyone, welcome back to the anatomy of a DARVO. So if you haven't seen part one, please do watch that first. I cover exactly what a DARVO is, what it sounds like in action, plus I walk you through an in-depth example of a common but very exceptionally covert DARVO takedown so that you can fully recognize its exact maneuvers, emotions, and motivations that really create the fertile breeding ground for narcissistic manipulation. And if you are new to my channel, welcome. I am Dr. Erin Watson, PhD, aka not a medical doctor. I am a coach, educator, speaker, researcher, and former university instructor and family trauma therapist. I specialize in narcissistic systems and scapegoating. My work examines the toughest and often most invisible traumas and betrayals that survivors of narcissistic and scapegoat systems experience. So things like bystander silence and compliance, chronic invalidation, family ejection, lack of justice and accountability, being wrongly convicted through things like smear campaigns, character assassinations, as well as all the disenfranchised and complex grief that is part and parcel of the survival and recovery of these processes. So this is part two of Anatomy of a DARVO, and in this video I'm going to expand to include a variety of specific examples of what a DARVO looks and sounds like in different contexts, including things that you might not have recognized as a DARVO. I'm also going to be exploring how narcissistic abusers use DARVOs to play victim, how they stretch out DARVOs so that they can last weeks, even longer, how they use DARVOs as a catalyst for reactive abuse, so how they use DARVOs to sort of poke and prod you into a specific reaction that they can then use against you later, how they mix DARVOs and love bombs into a potent but silent explosion, and how they get others to DARVO you by proxy. And this is a special tactic to really make you question and control and self-police. This is also one of the cornerstones of narcissistic system abuse, where really the allies and the flying monkeys and the bystanders are all brought in to perpetuate the harm against you. But let's begin with just the quickest crash lesson. DARVO is an acronym coined by Jennifer Freyd that stands for Deny, Attack, Reverse, Victim, and Offender. I know you already know this. And it is an elaborate gaslighting mechanism that admittedly we've all used once or twice when we get scared and defensive. So I just kind of want to name that, right? We have all inadvertently been like, nah, it wasn't me, it was me, right? We do that, okay? But we tend to notice and repair and reflect and go, okay, well, that wasn't my healthiest or most emotionally mature coping strategy. However, and what I'm talking about today is the DARVO that is a strategy or a tactic that is frequently and purposefully used by those who are emotionally immature, toxic, or who have narcissistic personality styles, or those who are actively scapegoating someone. Now, these DARVOs happen in conversation when the emotionally immature person cannot take responsibility for their actions, or they cannot self-reflect in order to be accountable for their behavior. And instead, what they're doing is they're projecting the blame and the shame onto the target or onto the scapegoat instead. Okay, so here's a very quick example. And yes, I am reading notes, by the way. I mean, if we didn't, this would be a 6-hour video, and I would have been telling you about my trip to Hawaii or something, like ADHD. Thank you for being with me. Okay, quick example. Deny. I didn't say that. Attack. Well, you're always so dramatic, making things out to be worse than they are. Reverse victim and offender. You paint me to be such a horrible dad. My feelings are so hurt. Okay, great. Not all DARVOs are so explicit and clear cut, and that is what today's video is about. And the most common experience of a DARVO is actually that it slides right by you before you even notice it has happened. Honestly, you might not notice it until like weeks later when a friend or your therapist or your coach points it out. So that's a pretty typical thing, by the way. Don't be like, oh crap. That happens to all of us. I have many a time been blindsided later by the realization that a DARVO had descended on me like a month ago. Like, oh, that's what that was. Okay, let's dive right into some examples. So here are some DARVOs that you didn't realize were DARVOs. 1, well, if you hadn't of XYZ, I wouldn't have had to have done XYZ. 2, you're out to get me. 3, you're overreacting. It is stressing me out. 4, wow, you are not thinking clearly. Are you having a mental health issue? Ooh. The reason these are DARVOs is because the deny and the reverse victim offender are built right in. Okay, so let's look at the first example here. If you wouldn't have done XYZ, I wouldn't have had to. So what they are saying is, I'm not in any way responsible, right? So that's the denial and the avoidance statement. Plus, they have passed the buck to you, right? I wouldn't have had to behave this way if only you hadn't, right? So they are saying, you made me behave this way. You are culpable. You are responsible. And I would never have done this. This isn't even who I am if it were not for you. This is, I call this like a subtle shame shift. Okay, this is sidebar. Okay. I coin terms a lot because there's a lot that we talk about that we actually don't have a vernacular for. So I think it's really important to name things and give them a language, A, so that we just better understand what's happening to us, but also so that we can put the blame and responsibility external where it belongs. And this is a really, really important for our survival, for our recovery, and for our well-being, ultimately. I think it's also very important um, as a way to expose the narcissistic or scapegoat machines, right? And we talk about not having accountability, we talk about not having justice. Well, one of the ways that we gain justice is by exposing the inner workings of these machines. And language does that. So I have a ton of language that will be new to you. The concepts will not be new to you because you will have experienced them. But the language will be new to you, and I will be sharing those with you over the course of these videos. Okay, so I coined the term shame shift to explain these moments when someone is acting ashamed of their behavior, but they're clearly not feeling ashamed of their behavior. So they're only portraying shame so that you feel bad and you feel guilty, and therefore you take on the shame. You take on the responsibility for the behavior, right? So they're saying, oh, you made me do it. You made me say it. You made me neglect you. I never would have done it if it weren't for you. And somehow out of that, because they're acting wounded, you're going, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me help you. Okay, in the second example, so the second example was you're out to get me. So the narcissist doesn't even have to say, that's not true, I didn't do that, you're out to get me, now I feel scared, woe is me, right? So that's the entire DARVO. They only have to say, you're out to get me. And you will already have done the mental work of knowing that that implies denial. I didn't do that. And it implies reverse victim and offender. Oh, woe is me. So you're again going to rush to their aid while questioning yourself and your experience. Now, a few similar examples include statements like, well, sweetie, you were hard to love as a kid, you know that. Or, it wasn't easy being your parent. And even the classic and most used, you're so sensitive. Now, if you listen to each of these statements, you are going to hear the absent, but much implied, I never hurt you, deny. You simply made me do something super out of character, attack, because of how difficult and problematic you are. Bam, there it is. And oh, how that was so hard for me. Reverse, victim, and offender. And shame shift. Now, if the abuser really wants to get to the point, you know they're going to say things like, "You're toxic. You're abusing me. You're a narcissist." In other words, they're going to say, "I never did anything. You're the issue. And because of that, it causes huge damage to me." Ha! Right? Maniacal laughter right now. Whew. Okay, those are some silent DARVOs, but the silent DARVO that you will hear the most often is the phrase, "Stop playing the victim." This is also a gaslight. I mean, what DARVO is not a gaslight. But I'm singling this one out because this is a double hypocrisy. This is like a double hypocrisy knockout. This is one of those ones that would make it into like the Narc Olympics where every game is rigged, obviously. Okay, so what is happening here is they are actually playing victim, right? So they're orchestrating an encounter where they can become wounded by you even when you don't do anything to wound them. That's playing victim, right? And then they can tell you that you are playing victim, knowing full well how much stigma and shame and is attached to it, right? Because it is a highly shaming statement, and it's precisely that way because of how abusive people or toxic people use being a victim to manipulate others. So now the people who were actually victims, like you're actually victimized by this DARVO and by this narcissistic system, you're shamed and you end up feeling bad for being a victim. So you're going to hide your pain and you're going to hide your suffering and you're going to hide your trauma. It's like your little trauma trench coat, like stuff it in there, zip it up. And you're going to try and be better, quote, quote, as people, right? This is a double takedown. This is clever, 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 clever. Okay. As awful as that is, it's actually not even like the most effective DARVO. The most effective DARVO, of course, is the one that is fully embedded in making you feel fog. So fog is Dr. Susan Forward's term for fear, obligation, and guilt. Bam, bam, bam. So DARVOs that are super effective embed you in fog in addition to blaming you. So the original DARVO blames you. Now you get like the buy one, get one of also fear, obligation, and guilt. So basically, anytime you're in a toxic conversation, even though you are the one being harmed or targeted or blamed or assaulted, you feel immense fear, guilt, pressure to rush to the aid of the person harming you. How does this happen? How? So an example of this could be something like, "Well, that's not how it happened. You're always reading too far into things. All I've ever done is love you and support you, and this is the thanks I get? You are breaking my heart right now." So this is how martyr or vulnerable covert narcissists use DARVOs to play victim. So a DARVO plus this martyr tactic really does this double duty because not only does it pawn off the blame and responsibility to you, but it incites you to work harder in the relationship with them over time. This is how they get you to do the work. Okay, another example is, "What? I can't believe you felt hurt by that. My God, it's like I can't even do anything right around you. I just don't feel safe around you anymore. and I'm gonna have to distance myself. And to think I was gonna take you on that trip with me. So you can see in these examples, they pull on the heartstrings, right? Especially if the person darvoing you is a parent or a caregiver whom you desperately want and need to feel a loving bond with. Right? You can also see how there is fear. So there's fear of abandonment, fear of being labeled unsafe, and then the obligation of having to change your feelings, your perceptions, and contort yourself in order to earn them back. Okay, I'm back. Someone is mowing their lawn. The audacity! Mowing their lawn! Well, I, a woefully inexperienced and under-equipped YouTuber, is trying to make a video. Okay. So we just talked about how you're changing your feelings, perceptions, you're contorting yourself, right? You're doing whatever it takes to earn them back, even though they were toxic to you. This is what happens. Okay. A simple, quote, Darvo might make you feel bad for the moment. I say moment, like it's a lingering moment. They feel awful. And of course, they make you want to apologize or rescind your complaint about the behavior. That's the goal of the Darvo. But these martyr Darvos make you on guard at all times in your relationship with this person, right? So they are designed to make you question your very kindness as a person. Ooh, it's almost like they are a method of character assassination. Okay. They are strategically used to make you feel not good enough, like overall, and to feel deep sympathy for the plight of the person trying to love you. And so you adjust your behavior in the relationship with them. In other words, these Darvos ensure that you start to contort yourself to stay small and compliant and in servitude of them as the default of your dynamic with them. Right? You can call it enmeshment, you can call it codependence, you can call it parentification. It all applies. These martyr Darvos are the roots that help create this type of trauma bonding. Okay, trauma bonding, whole other video. We'll get there. So Darvos are, of course, a sign of emotional immaturity. They're also a sign of fear and defensiveness. And yes, we have all been defensive from time to time. We've also all probably used a Darvo or two, quite by accident. But of course, hopefully, you've recognized it and you've made the necessary amends and repairs. We're not talking about the moments where in our relationships we learn and we make a mistake and we grow. Those are the things that are absent in toxic relationships, the ability to make the mistake and the maturity and responsibility and the self-reflection needed to grow and change. Those things don't exist in narcissistic systems. Okay. In the circumstances that I'm talking about now, the ones that I just described, Darvos are deliberate. They are routine. They are control tactics meant to ensure that you remain small and enmeshed. More than that, Darvos are also sometimes used as a tactic to specifically make you look like the bad guy, not just in the moment, in the relationship. Not just in the argument, but as a person. So in other words, not only are they going to Darvo using words to deny your feelings and your truth about what just happened or didn't happen, but they are going to Darvo you as a person to dismantle your credibility. So how they do this is by using a Darvo as a catalyst for reactive abuse. Now, reactive abuse meaning that they're going to poke and prod you and trigger you and activate you until you emotionally react, which would happen, obviously. And they use that emotional reaction against you later, or they use it in smear campaigning you or character assassinating you with others. This is how they sort of recruit people against you and paint you out to be the bad person. Okay, so here's an example. Let's say we'll do a romantic relationship example. Let's say you catch your partner going through your phone. Um, and he says, excuse the gender terms here, he says, um, um, or he sees a picture of you. He sees a picture of you and a coworker together at a retreat, and he flies into a rage. And you start to explain it. You're like, this is a work retreat, but he cuts you off. So you try and explain it again. You're like, okay, you went through my phone and I'm trying to give you information and context because you're really worked up. And then he comes back with, what are you talking about? I'm not worked up. I'm concerned. You left your phone open on the table, okay? I glanced at it. That's insane that you're accusing me of being a snoop. And this feels like a threat, right? What else are you trying to hide? I'm really worried about trusting you now, and I think I may need to leave. So I'm gonna go to my buddy's place because he warned me about you anyway, and I just need to calm down. Oh, do you feel confused? Scared? Heartbroken? Furious? Totally bamboozled? Enraged? Yes, yes, to all of those things. Do you catch yourself trying to correct him? Saying, like, no, that's not what was happening, or that's not what I said. But he keeps prodding you with, I'm worked up. Look how emotional you're getting. You're so sensitive. And you know what? You start to cry, perhaps, understandable. And then he uses, oh, and now you're making me look like a bad guy, hurting your feelings. This is manipulation. You are so toxic. Wowzers. Okay, okay. Let's take a moment here together, because that was yucky, right? For your brain, for your heart, for your system. That was really, really yucky. And even if that scenario didn't feel familiar to you, certainly the rage or the confusion or the being tripped up like that and not even being allowed to like get your words out, that probably feels familiar, relatable. And this feeling of losing control, the feeling of emotional overwhelm, and the incredulity at the claims being made, that's real. And then you have the terror of losing the person you love and you want love from. Because, yes, there is terror to lose someone that you love, especially someone toxic. And this is because they have trauma bonded you and they have promised you everything you could ever dream of. If only you would just be better. Now, you may have also noticed that very sneaky, sneaky tactic, again here where the, I will say fictional character, right? Because this is obviously not based on any real life person, but this fictional character put words into your mouth during the DARVO. So he said, you're accusing me of being a snoop. Where did that come from? Right? That was a clever contortion of reality, wasn't it? Right? So he used the DARVO to curate a new narrative of you that didn't previously exist and that has no basis to it. But in the context of his emotional reaction, his perceptions and his accusations now stand in as fact when he relays the story to others, right? So they become his truth. This is how he's able to create a narrative about you, right? So he's going to ensure that this narrative becomes other people's truths about you as well, because they're only going to get his narrative of you, right? They're probably going to get multiple narratives like this from him to fully character assassinate you. And if you want to understand how this is a core component of narcissistic system abuse, please be sure to watch my video on narcissistic system abuse. So how others are used to target and harm you. Okay, we're not even done yet. Oh boy. We are now going to talk about DARVOs as a strategy to create plausible deniability, right? So that one was how they used it for reactive abuse, to paint a picture of who you are as a person so they can further sort of ostracize you. That's a control tactic. So now controlling you, but how do they get away with their abuse? So this is a strategy to create that plausible deniability. So they're going to use a DARVO to provoke you or to incite a specific reaction from you. This is one way abusers maintain that plausible deniability, right? Because if they can create proof that you're the problem, that you are dramatic, or that you are too sensitive, or that you are destabilized, or that you're explosive, then they can A, quote unquote, justify their treatment of you. It's not justified in any way, but they, within themselves, can justify it to themselves. Ooh. And B, garner sympathy from others. And that sympathy, right? Because others are only going to see your explosive reaction instead of all the poking and prodding that went on behind the scenes. A further way that abusers maintain plausible deniability is through the DARVO Love Bomb. Potent and silently deadly. Also, yes, I am making these things up. I'm not making up the things that are happening. I'm making up the names for them. If you have cooler names, like throw them in the comments. Love that. Okay, potent, silently deadly, DARVO Love Bomb. So in the Anatomy of a DARVO video 1, I use an example where a mother appears to be comforting her daughter after a breakup. I say appears because she sounds loving. Her tone is warm and sensitive. It feels like closeness and it feels like bonding for the daughter, right? Because this daughter has never experienced love and closeness outside of guilt trips and strings attached, right? So she's going to take any micro moment she can get, obviously. But yet the words that the mother is using are full-on emotional bullets. Oh, sweetie, someday you'll find someone who can love you. Ooh. So in this example, go watch video 1, it's as if they're tossing a package at you that looks like love, but as soon as you catch it, you're blown to smithereens. So you just got to feel the warmth of your mother hugging you and soothing you, something she rarely does. And so you're soaking it in fiercely. And while you're there letting your guard down, she subtly and sneakily tells you you aren't lovable. Oh. So a DARVO love bomb feels just like that. You are being lauded with the affection and closeness and sensitivity and hugs and soothing sounds and warmth that you never got from a parent. And it feels intoxicating. Or it's embedded in like the most beautiful but backhanded compliments. And when you're not getting any positive verbal affirmations, you crave these things. These are needed things. Not the backhanded compliments, like the actual love. You crave it. You're thinking more, please, more of this. This is what it is supposed to feel like. Not the things you were saying, but the feeling of you being there and loving me. So you sink into it. But as they speak, they are saying things like, I tried the best I could with you. You just never had enough confidence to date good women or good people. It's so hard seeing you in such pain all the time. My heart positively aches. What is a mother to do? Oh, but I'll be here when it happens again, sweetie. Oh, 'cause we know it will, won't it, huh? Not everyone is made for dating and relationships. It's okay. Not everyone can be like Mommy. But maybe that's a good thing, sweetie, for you. Maybe this means you will always be there for me and we can be best friends and stay close and I'll never lose my baby. Ooh. In case you're sitting there seeing a little bit of that overt narc come out. Ooh, what a party. Okay, and you know what? It is so cruel what this mom is saying, oh, it is disgusting. But it's understandable if all you can think is, this closeness feels nice. I don't want to lose this bond. And so you agree with her. I know, Mom. I'm just so messed up. I don't have any idea why. I know you were such a good mom. I know I'll always be there for you, Mom. The full weight of the Darvo, it's not even going to hit you until later. And it's going to drop like an anvil. And honestly, the only place it has to go is like into your heart and your soul, right? So you're going to start carrying the emotional weight of all these love bomb Darvo encounters. Okay, I'm going to add something. This is a little bit outside the scope of this video, but I want to mention that this is one of the way abusers keep you small and compliant, right? So the mix of love bomb with the abuse at the same time is going to train you to sabotage yourself, right? So that you can make sure you get all those little delicious love crumbs. Because if they're only this loving when you are flailing or struggling or in your head effing up, then you're going to continue to fail and F up. And I'm using quotes there. Right? Because you want to ensure that you never rise up and you never shine and you never show the strength that is inside of you, because you don't get the love crumbs when you do that. You get the opposite. You get like neglect. So they create this helplessness in you that keeps you compliant, and you trade that for scraps. So if you need a hug right now, that makes sense. Do you need a hug? I need a hug. Hug time. Take it. Okay. As you well know, covert narcissists alter how much space you allow yourself to take up in relationship with them. And they do this without you realizing what is happening until, I would say, years, sometimes it's decades later. So time is on their side, and they use that time strategically. And one of the ways they do this is by stretching out their DARVOs so that they can last days or even weeks. So I'm actually going to spend a little bit more time on this one because these DARVOs actually have a slightly different template, which I realize then nullify them as a DARVO in the strict sense. So they actually start with the reverse victim and offender, and then they go in for the attack. And the denial portion happens at the end, which is strategic. So it's strategically at the end, or it might be invisible or implied, as we said a little bit earlier. So, and that is because they save it for when they know that you are going to feel most shocked and dysregulated by their sneak attack. So when they reverse victim and offender first, they rope you in with that like guilt trip. You're like, oh, I'm in and my walls are down and I want to help you. And then they attack you and you're like, whoa, bam, where'd that come from? And then they deny everything and you're like, is this the Matrix? It's very confusing. So here are some examples. Let's say you had an argument a week or so ago and you thought all was resolved. Then out of the blue, when you genuinely felt things were going smoothly between you, they approach you and say, you know, I've been feeling really hurt since our last conversation. You're acting like it's all over, but I'm still really raw. Or, I still feel afraid around you. We didn't fix anything. I just didn't say anything because I can't speak up to you without you criticizing me. Here's the thing. Yes, some of these phrases could, in some circumstances, be used in a healthy conversation. Obviously, different tonality, a few key adjustments, of course. But the reason these in this context are so damaging is because they are deliberately meant to affect your trust in the moments where you feel most safe and secure in a relationship. So their timing is no accident. You genuinely felt things were going well, and probably for good reason. things probably were going well. They are saying, don't get too comfortable. So the harm, of course, is to your sense of trust. So their statement makes the whole resolution thing seem like a lie. And thus, it makes you lose trust in all your healthy interactions with them. Suddenly, you're walking on eggshells. And when you walk on eggshells, you contort, you comply, you stay small. Now, two, you're also now waiting for them to come at you at any point. So now you're making all future interactions anxiety inducing as well. Boy, they've really got you on your toes. Okay. But it also alters your trust in yourself. So what did you miss that apparently had been brewing all these weeks? How come you didn't notice? Right? I thought you were such a a sensitive person, and you're thinking, I'm so I'm so attuned. I am beautifully sensitive. I'm attuned and I'm aware and I'm an empath. Well, how did I not pick up on this? How did I not notice that they have been upset during all these weeks following? So you actually spend time going through and rehashing every detail of the interaction, second guessing yourself. Oh, how clever. So they don't have to even deny things in the moment. They can retroactively get you to rescind like all things that they have done by you second guessing yourself. And in the meantime, of course, your nervous system is activated, you're back fully in a state of fight, flight, freeze, and of course, fawn. So, what ends up happening is you're going to modify your behavior in advance to placate them, right? Just in case. This is survival. So, this creates this walking on eggshells or this trap door feeling, right? You're standing on a trap door, they've got their finger over the trigger, and you're monitoring your behavior and you're monitoring them for any cues that they may be off. Naturally, you're going to try even harder to make them happy, to keep you safe, make them happy to keep you safe. Okay, so here's another example of this sort of long drawn out DARVO. It's got a little bit of a twist. Sometimes they will set you up for a DARVO out of the blue. So they came at you in that one. They're just like, here I am, DARVO time. This time they're going to actually set you up. So let's say they come up to you saying, you seem off. And you were feeling fine, right? Again, they're catching you when you feel safe. So there's like a sneak attack, but also a setup happening here. You say, well, I'm fine, but they don't accept it. So they probe and they say, hun, I can read you. You're definitely off. What did I do? Are you mad at me again? Oh, did you notice that? They went straight in with victim offender. The woe is me. So the DARVO hasn't even happened yet. They're just setting the stage so that they can DARVO you. And they're reeling you in with a beautiful guilt trip. So it's the what did I do? Are you mad at me? This is a statement that someone is looking for a fight. They need supply, right? They need narc supply right now. So they planted evidence, called you into the room to reveal your guilt for a crime that was never committed. This is crazy making. So, of course, the confusion sets you off kilter, right? Naturally, you would try and explain, right? I'm not mad. What are you talking about? Nothing's happened. But I was just relaxed. Like this is my relaxed face. I don't have a look on my face. I'm not harboring anything. And as they persist to try and uncover something that simply isn't there, you, understandably, are going to become more agitated and more vulnerable and therefore primed for their attack. So you're going to react eventually, anyone would, and you might exasperatingly say, this is what makes me upset, right? You're poking me and prodding me and you're putting words in my mouth. It's infuriating. And they've got you, right? They've got you. So now they can say, see, I knew you were angry. You're always so upset at me. Can't you see how hard I'm trying? I tried to just move on and keep peace, and it's clear you can't let things go. Oh, did you see that? You saw the deny. You saw the reverse victim offender. You saw the attack. You saw the gaslight. Or they say simply, I knew it. I've been walking on eggshells around you for weeks because of it. Deny is built right in. Oh, attack. I have to walk on eggshells around you. What's so wrong with you? In the second example, there wasn't even an incident for them to deny or defend, but they created a ghost of a scenario in order to paint you as angry or grudging or scary. So essentially, they are implying, I've literally done nothing, and yet you've been angry at me for no reason, and now I'm scared, and now I'm walking on eggshells. Wow. Okay. The attack is overt, right? So even though in both of these scenarios it's planted, it's still in your face. You're always so upset at me. I have to walk on eggshells around you. So, AKA, they're saying you're emotionally dangerous. And of course, the martyrdom of reversing victim and offender rounds the whole thing out, right? Can't you see how hard I'm trying? I'm in such pain because of you. Why can't you glorify me like a good child would to their parent? I feel so scared around you despite all my efforts to make this relationship good. So we have one last Darvo to cover, and it's a pretty big one. It's the DARVO by proxy, but it's quite involved. So we're going to do a whole video on the DARVO by proxy and specifically how the DARVO by proxy is used in scapegoat systems. So we're really going to tie together the DARVO and the systemic part of narcissistic system and scapegoat abuse. I want to thank you for watching this particular elaborate excursion through the labyrinth of DARVOs and how they are specifically used by narcissistic and scapegoat systems to discredit and dismantle your self-trust, your safety, and your relational security. Thank you. We'll see you in part 3. Take care.